This is the new Balance 310 from Peplink that just dropped today. It's the first router in kind of a portable configuration that has 4 gigabits of routing capacity, and it's a pretty interesting contender for mobile use. Come along with us, I'll tell you all about it. Hey folks, Eric with MobileMustHave.com, and thanks for joining us to discuss the new Balance 310. Now there's a couple things to note on this device right out of the gates. It's a little bit different than the stuff that we typically cover. Normally we're talking about the Max series devices that have integrated 5G modems in them. And notably, the Balance 310 does not have a mobile modem built into it. So it doesn't have a 5G or 4G cellular connection. But with a lot of the advances that Peplink has made with things like synergy mode, it's very easy to add that. And this is essentially something that can operate as a hub for a lot of high-end mobile internet customers to kind of create the ideal and perfect mobile internet setup. I'll be putting chapter links below so you can hop around this video if that's something that you want to do, and that will also include chapter links for kind of our use cases or where we think this thing best fits in the mobile internet space. Additionally, I highly recommend you like and subscribe this video. Like it because it helps our channel, but subscribe because we know about a lot of really cool stuff that's in the Peplink pipeline right now, and we're not allowed to talk about it. So if you subscribe to this channel, you will be the first to know about it. We promise you that we will do videos on the stuff as soon as we're allowed to talk about it, and you'll be up to speed on the latest and greatest mobile internet tech out there. All right, so let's talk about the Balance 310. And before I dive into the specs and kind of start geeking out, this is a very fast mobile router. With 4 gigabits of kind of max throughput on the router side, this thing has a very fast processor in it, and it can do a lot of information passing on the firewall side to make things move very quickly. That is incredibly important when you're looking at multi-WAN or multi-internet connected setups. So if you're in a home office and you're thinking, I have a cable modem or a fiber connection and I want a backup connection, or I have a fiber connection and I want a Starlink backup, or I'm in a yacht and I have a Starlink and a 5G, or maybe I want to bond 3 Starlinks, or all kinds of stuff like that. When you start to get into those types of configurations, your routing performance is probably going to matter quite a bit. As we see 5G start to kind of bang up against that max, 1 gigabit download speed in real world performance testing, and we're seeing the Starlink latest generation satellites with the high performance Gen 3 dish report that they may be able to achieve gigabit speeds in the future. Well, if you have 5G and you have Starlink and you want to combine them or use them both, and your router has a limitation of a 1 gig throughput, you're only going to see a maximum speed of 1 gigabit across those 2 connections. Peplink knows this, and that's why they are investing in higher end processors to bump up that routing speed. In addition to the 4 gigabits of max routing speed, this can support up to 1 gigabit of SpeedFusion bonded performance, unencrypted. That's incredibly fast. In most of the routers we were seeing prior to this unit, like the B1 or the BR1 Pro 5G, or the BR2, you'd be seeing kind of like a 200 megabits max throughput. And if you drop down to like the Mini and some of the entry levels, it would be less than 100 megabits, depending on the model you were looking at. So to have a 1 gig bonded performance spec on the SpeedFusion bonded connection, and what that means is you can basically combine multiple internet connections and get a single, much more resilient and reliable internet pipe. So if one goes down, you don't lose that important Zoom call or whatever you're working on the internet. SpeedFusion is the technology behind it that gets all that done. So a lot of people don't know that because the router is combining all of those internet connections and running it through a tunnel up to the cloud called a SpeedFusion tunnel, it's not going to be as fast as the max routing throughput of the router itself. So that added SpeedFusion routing speed is something that could matter to you if you're looking to bond multiple connections. In terms of form factor, the Balance 310 largely kind of follows the footprint or size of like the B1 5G, although it's quite a bit heavier. There's definitely a lot of kit going on, and we're dealing with a metal enclosure here, upgraded from some of like the Balance 20X plastic housings that we saw on some of the Balance models. Now, Peplink has always kind of considered most of the Balance lines to be office products or small home office products, and the Max ruggedized products to be more vehicle products. They have heat sinks, they're built for more rugged environments. And the Balance 310 is really no different. This has a max operating temperature of 104 degrees Fahrenheit, and that's kind of your ambient temperature that this router would feel happy living in. Now, we've talked to Peplink and we've explained that for most RVers or mobile enthusiasts who would be looking at a product like this, they're likely living inside of their space, whether it's a marine application or whether it's their RV or van or whatnot. So to a large extent, there's going to be climate controlled aspects to that environment. And as such, you'll see in some of the marketing material, Peplink has started to kind of market this as something that could be a hub for RV use. Now, if you're looking at turning off your climate control inside of your mobile application and letting the heat get up to 150 degrees in a hot parking lot, this is probably not a device for you, and you'll want to make sure you look at a device that's more designed for that kind of application, like the BR1 Pro 5G. Now, that being said, the B1 5G, we have not had any heat complaints from across our entire customer base, and they are largely deployed inside of RVs. Now, the B1 5G at 114 degree Fahrenheit max, environmental stat on what it was comfortable with. This is down to 104, but we think most folks are keeping their RVs in, sub 80 degrees so that they're comfortable, and that's why people aren't really having any issues. It's just something to be mindful of, especially if you're putting this up in a cabinet. You'll want to make sure to add a fan or other cooling to make sure that you stay protected and online. All right, so let's get into some of the cool specs on what's going on with this device. And I'm going to spend most of my time on this side because this is where all the ports are. We're going to start with the WAN ports. Now, these are the wired ports that allow you to plug internet sources into them, whether that's a cable modem, a fiber connection, a Starlink, or another Peplink device like this that has a 5G modem inside of it. We'll get into that in a minute. But what we have here is we have two 2.5 gigabit WAN ports here. Those are shown here in kind of the yellow-orange color, the Peplink orange, and you've got WAN 1 and WAN 2 on the wired side. That's pretty cool. And if you notice on the right WAN 2, you'll notice there's a box around it, and it designates that has power over Ethernet output, meaning that it can actually power a PoE device from that port. We'll get into that in a minute as well, because that is obviously now going to become clear what kind of Peplink's design methodology and philosophy has been with a lot of these other devices that have come out recently, like the BR1 Pro 5G, that accepts PoE to power it. We'll talk about that in a second. But before we go into that, let's continue on to these ports. Now, these are our LAN ports, local area network ports, and this is where we would plug in our devices. And these have stepped it up from 1 gigabit ports to 10 gigabit ports. So this device is very compatible with folks that are moving around a lot of data. So if you are a video editor, if you are a vlogger, a blogger, someone like that, if you're a professional photographer, if you're an amateur photographer, if you're just moving large files, 10 gig is where it's at. It's very, very fast. I actually edit this video over 10 gig, and I have a server located in another location on this property, and through a 10 gig connection, I can connect up to all of our editing video databases that's just like loads of hard drives and edit like it's on my local hard drive using the 10 gig connection. You could never have done that with standard gigabit. And technically, because this is an advanced mobile router, you can even combine multiple 10 gig ports with certain switching policies that Peplink supports. So you could actually kind of double these up and go even further. It's also worth mentioning that because Peplink devices with PrimeCare come with added licensing, you can convert, as long as you're under your PrimeCare. You could also buy an optional license to if you didn't want PrimeCare, but you can convert one of these LAN ports over to a virtual WAN port and kick up one of these ports to be a third WAN port for an additional wired internet source. Continuing with that sort of hybrid approach they have of small office, home office versus mobility, we're now starting to see that they're using the 4-pin micro Molex power connector that supports the ignition sensing functionality inside of a balanced product. So that's kind of new. And we've also got a grounding screw here, so you can do certain you can ground the device if you're in a mobile application or in a home application, just for added protection of the device if you have a lightning strike or other kind of surge event. Moving on to the other side, this is kind of the front of the device, right? They're expecting that you're largely going to have this like in a server rack or on a desk somewhere on top of a computer, and most of the business is going to be going out the back so it can plug into your switches and other stuff. But it is notable to note that they have included a console port here, so you can do console management, SSH and other types of management on the console port. There are guides for how to use that, and this would largely be stuff for folks that are in the IT industry and want to do certain types of out-of-band management or connect up to a device in a way other than through the web interface or through InControl. Additionally, on the bottom here, we've got the little kind of stars here for mounting on a wall. And what that essentially means is you can mount it this way and click it on with 2 screws onto a wall, or you could mount it in any sort of orientation you'd like to get it up and out of the way. Very handy for a mobile installation concept. So let's talk about that power over Ethernet WAN port that we have here in WAN 2. So where that's going to come into play is if you're looking at this device and you want to add in most cases, you want to add like a 5G connection to the device, and you want to really simplify your wiring setup. So in that case, what you'll notice is in most of the later model kind of that have come out in the last 6 months to like 6 to 18 months, most of the devices that have come out of recent, like the BR1 Pro 5G that you see here, as well as the BR1 Mini, they have power over Ethernet functionality, meaning they can be powered by an Ethernet cable on the LAN or the WAN side. Now, where that kind of comes into play for a device like this is you can actually take this device here, and I'll show you a close-up of it, and you can take a single Ethernet cable from the LAN port and plug it into that PoE port, and boom, the Peplink secondary device is going to power up. Now, we have separate videos on this, but if you enable Synergy mode, there's a Synergy controller inside of all Peplink routers, but specific for this video in the 310, it's going to basically open up this router to being able to control and manage another router. So in this case, with the devices you see here, I can now control this BR1 Pro all from the central dashboard of the Balance 310. And essentially these two devices now have become one, and from an installation perspective, I haven't had to run additional power cords or anything to get the BR1 Pro 5G up and running. Now, this could also work with more advanced devices like the BR2, if you were looking to add like 2 5G connections. And not only will it synergize and allow you to gain access to the 5G modems inside of these devices, but you can also gain access to downstream WAN ports on these devices to further add to the complexity and to the basically the ability to expand your mobile setup. It's pretty cool the way Synergy mode works, and adding that PoE port means that you can dramatically simplify how this all is set up. It is important to note that the Balance 310 does not have Wi-Fi, but it does have a Wi-Fi controller in it, and that kind of is continuing the DNA of this really being a hub for multiple devices. You could absolutely add any of the Peplink access points to it, including the new latest generation Enterprise AP1 or the AP1 Enterprise Wi-Fi 7 access point that has support for the 10 gig ports that this has. Now just note that you will need to power that AP with either 12 volts, a 12 volt power adapter, or pick up a 10 gig supported PoE injector just because you don't have PoE on these LAN ports. So now let's talk about use cases and where I think this thing would really shine, especially for mobile internet customers. First, I want to talk about marine applications. So sailboats, yachts, really anywhere on the open water or anywhere on the water where you're looking for really fast, always on, high availability internet connections. What I see folks doing with this is utilizing this WAN port that has the PoE and plugging in something like this. This is a dome that's about 5 years old that just came off my RV. I upgraded to the 5G variant. But that's a PoE device that has a ultra fast 5G embedded modem inside of it. You can actually get that with the long range variant that is going to have even more, 2 5Gs in it. So there's quite a bit that you can do with the dome kind of platform. And that would be a single Ethernet cable down, very, very convenient for someone who has a long mast or has to deal with cable runs to be able to run a single Ethernet cable down and get yourself either single or multiple 5G connectivity and an integrated high-powered antenna on that 5G that's not going to have cable loss between the modem inside of here and the 5G antenna. So you're going to see very, very high performance on your 5G connections with that. Next, on this port, I would be putting in a Starlink high performance Gen 3. And now I'm in a position where I can have a Starlink high performance Gen 3, a 5G or multiple 5G backups, and 10 gigabit ports here downstream to uplink the rest of my network and to include things like wireless access points and whatnot to roll out internet to the rest of the vessel. In that particular configuration, the sky's really the limit. This thing has the ability to support up to, I think it's recommended for up to 30 access points and up to 50 switches that it can manage in the integrated switch console where it can actually manage Peplink Ethernet switches all on that single dashboard. Now that wiring application and multiple Starlinks or the dome is not exclusive to the marine environment. That would largely work very well as well for the RV community. That could get you quite a bit right out of the gates and be an interesting contender for how you would connect everything up in an RV, especially if you were worried about drilling a large hole in your roof for a more traditional roof cellular antenna like our 7-in-1 or 11-in-1 antennas that we feature on this channel. Now, it's kind of a trade-off in the RV space because you don't typically have as much of a consideration for wire length as you do in a marine application for those cellular antennas. So, you could still obviously in the RV space look at the BR1 Pro 5G as an interesting contender that would probably keep your overall budget a bit lower than if you introduce something like this. But it's an interesting application, especially for the advanced users who want to take advantage of 10 gigabit and want to take advantage of not having a big hole in the roof if they want to still take advantage of 5G with a device like this and then still pair it up with Starlink or something else. I don't recommend the 310 for someone who's like just going to use it with a single WAN source. I just think it's kind of overkill for that, but it's just something to note. The last category I think this fits really well for is in a place like this. This is our office, and I have fiber coming into this building. I have a Starlink on the roof of this building, and I have a BR2 currently managing most of our connections here that has dual 5G on it. Now, I'm actually bumping up against the limitations of the BR2 because some of those connections, mainly the fiber, are just so darn fast. So this unit is, normally I send these back to the warehouse and they become units that kind of go out for sale. This one's not. This one's going to stay here and become the hub of my office that you're in right now. Wiring up this office, we'll use the one of these ports for our fiber connection, and then we'll use this PoE port to power up the BR2. On the BR2, I'll switch WAN 1 over to LAN, which you can do in the interface, and then that will enable my ability to use synergy mode on that device and power it. So I have a much more simplified power wiring configuration over there. Then we'll uplink over here to the 10 gig switches that are already running in this location, and that'll just kind of speed up my entire backplane. Starlink is going to get treatment on one of the remaining LAN ports, which will convert over to a WAN using the virtual WAN licensing, and this is going to be my new firewall for my office. So if you're working from home, or you have some branch offices, or main offices that have, I'd say, up to like 30, 40, 50 employees, this could be an interesting central hub for you that's going to give you the ability to get into a multi-WAN technology without having to pull your hair out learning routing configurations or command line interface or all the other crazy stuff that you have to do with Cisco and some of the other products that are out there. I think Peplink is really stepping it up in the SMB and the enterprise market, and a lot of IT managers are starting to figure out that this stuff is really reliable and can get you a lot of connections and disaster recovery all in a really simple package that comes in from a price point perspective at the same or less than what they were looking at with, Watchdog or SonicWall or all these other, Cisco Meraki or other products that maybe they were using in the marketplace. For all you geeks out there, this also supports edge computing, meaning there's a little server in there, and it has 8 gigabytes of storage. So you can do a lot of stuff with Dockerized containers, and with Docker, you could run a web server, you could run a home automation platform. If you're down with code, the sky's the limit. You can do all sorts of stuff, and there's plenty of websites around kind of what you can run inside of Docker, but that is something that is supported in this platform. If you want to learn more about Docker, or if you want to learn more about kind of all things mobile internet and you want to save some money, I highly recommend you check out our memberships at membership.mobilemusthave.com. There's some of the benefits right there. At a high level, you're going to get yourself upgraded 2-day shipping. You're going to get discounts on all the hardware that you see here. Memberships typically pay for themselves inside of a year, and you support our community, which we really appreciate. You also get discounts on Roamlink data plans. Roamlink is our multi-carrier network that we manage here at Mobile Must Have. Roamlink gets you AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, and US Cellular, all for one low price, and you can switch between networks, or it will automatically switch. So you don't have to keep worrying about which network should I get? What's the best coverage? What's that? Roamlink gets you all of those networks included in that one low price, so you don't have to keep playing hotspot roulette with all those different hotspots. With our memberships, you also get access to the Mobile Internet Resource Center. That's staffed by our Peplink experts, it's staffed by our Starlink experts, and we've got forums as well as our Peplink Resource Center and our Starlink Resource Center, where we talk through all things mobile internet, and we've got hours and hours of cool guides that help you get through all sorts of stuff. So maybe I talked to you today about synergy mode and how you connect this up to this, and you're thinking to yourself, that sounds really cool, but I'm really worried that I might not be technical enough to get that all working. Definitely check out the memberships. If you picked up hardware like this, you'd pay for the membership with that and a data plan easily, and then you'd be able to watch our synergy guide, and it would walk you through how to get that all up and running, and you'd be off to the races without wasting time trying to figure it out. So there's a lot of benefits. Definitely check it out at memberships.mobilemusthave.com. We've talked a lot about the LAN ports and 10 gig, but you do have a sparse number of them. You got 4 of them here. So you may be thinking if you want to add access points or other stuff and you're not in need of 10 gig, but you are in need of power over Ethernet, I'd highly recommend you check out our line. It's our internal line called Tough Signal. Tough Signal is our enterprise side of our brand and of the house, mainly helping customers set up all of this stuff on enterprise support. But we've also launched a line of various products under the Tough Signal brand. This is one of them. These are our power over Ethernet switches. There's 3 of them here. I'll give you kind of a close-up of this guy right here, which is our Tough Signal managed 8-port power over Ethernet switch. Now, I've spent a lot of time working with some switch manufacturers to get the stuff that I really care about into a single package and to do it at a very aggressive price. And that's what you see here. In this particular product here, you've got up to 90 watts of power per port with this 802.3 BT switch and up to a 480 watt max power output in this tiny little enclosure that can run on DC power. Now, to get 480 watts, you're going to have to wire up 2 different sets of DC power, but you're getting redundant DC power ports on this, so you can actually wire up 2 different power sources in case one of them fails. This switch, along with the DIN rail mounts on the back, we'll do a separate video on this, but this guy is a beast. It's IP40 rated. It's designed to be in an industrial application. We largely found these being used by a lot of municipalities, like running like stoplights and other stuff, and we asked them to cram in a lot more cool stuff on the DC power side so that it really worked well for mobile use. That, along with a slick little web interface and the ability to add VLANs and other stuff, mean that you can really quickly and easily utilize a managed switch like this to do more advanced stuff with your Peplink mobile router without breaking the bank. Things like adding additional access points, things like using virtual WAN on certain ports that you tag out for VLANing. Really, the sky's the limit when you have a managed switch. It's like having more than one switch in a small thing. You can segment out ports. I don't know if you remember before when I said you could combine multiple ports and you could aggregate ports. That's all stuff that you need a managed switch for. And if you don't need all that, like look at this little guy. This is a little 5-port PoE. Still runs on 12 volt. Its claim to fame is it's super small. And this is for folks that just need, you know, a couple extra ports. You don't need management. You don't need 90 watts of power per port. You just want to power some access points, maybe some security cameras, and you need something small. And then we've got an 8-port down here that also is unmanaged, and it's kind of the middle of the road. A little bit larger footprint, gives you a few more ports and a little bit more power output. So a lot of different options in the Tough Signal switch line. We'll go ahead and link up, as soon as it's available, the overview video that talks a bit more about those, and check them out. All right, folks, thanks for joining us and talking about the Balance 310. I'm really excited about this. I'm really excited to go put this in that location right over there so that I can speed up my internet and kind of put this thing through the paces. We've tested it a little bit, but I've got, I don't know, 250 devices in this network, so it'll be fun to kind of stress test it a little bit and see how it does. I know it won't disappoint. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, if you have questions about the Balance 310, if you have questions about anything that you see here, or configurations or whatnot, I recommend you schedule a consultation with one of our experts. You can go to talk.mobilemusthave.com, and we will schedule a mutual agreed time to talk to you about kind of what options there are. We typically hop on like a Zoom call or a scheduled call, and you speak to a live expert, talk through what you're looking to accomplish, and they'll get you sorted. You can also reach out to us with questions on our website. In the bottom right-hand corner, there's a chat box at mobilemusthave.com. You can just chat with a live agent during business hours, and you can always email us at info@mobilemusthave.com, or you can give us a call if you want. We just like to say scheduling the calls is usually a little easier for folks so they don't wait on hold. Our phone number is on right at the top left of our website. You can call us anytime during business hours, and we'll get you sorted. Thank you guys so much for checking out the Balance 310, and we'll see you on the road.